You could be sitting perfectly still right now, and inside your body, something risky might already be happening. Not tomorrow, not years from now, right now. Tiny particles are drifting through your bloodstream, moving through tens of thousands of miles of vessels. Some of them are harmless, some of them are not. And here's the uncomfortable part. Most people believe cholesterol becomes dangerous only after years of bad habits. After months of poor diet, after decades of inactivity, that belief is wrong. Because cholesterol doesn't wait for the future. It reacts to what your body is doing in this moment. Now imagine this. You stand up. You start walking, not running, not sweating, just walking. Within minutes, something inside your blood begins to change. Particles shift their behavior. Enzymes wake up. Hormones change their tone. Not on a lab report weeks later. Not after a fitness program, during the walk itself, and almost no one talks about this. Doctors mention numbers. Apps show calories. Fitness advice focuses on weight. But what's actually happening to your cholesterol while you walk, how fast it changes, and why your body responds so intelligently to something so simple. That part is usually skipped. Here's what makes this unsettling. Nearly half of heart attacks happen in people whose cholesterol numbers look normal. So the real danger was never just the number. It was the behavior of the particles inside the blood. And walking slow, boring, underestimated walking quietly changes that behavior. In this video, I'm going to show you what actually happens inside your body, minute by minute when you walk. Why walking is not exercise punishment, but a biological signal. And why your body may have been waiting for this signal far longer than you think. This is not motivation. This is physiology. And once you understand it, you'll never think about a simple walk the same way again. Part 1. The mistake almost everyone makes about cholesterol. Before we talk about walking, we need to clear up a dangerous misunderstanding because most people don't actually know what cholesterol is. They only know the label they were given. Good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, high numbers, low numbers, a red flag on a blood test. And once that label is applied, the story usually ends there. But cholesterol itself is not a villain. It never was. Cholesterol is a passenger, a necessary one. Your body produces it every single day, on purpose, not because it's failing, not because it's careless, but because every cell in your body depends on it to survive. Cholesterol builds the walls of your cells. It's used to make hormones like testosterone, estrogen, cortisol. Your brain relies on it to transmit signals properly. Without cholesterol, life stops. So, if cholesterol is so essential, why does it get blamed for heart disease? Here's the critical detail that rarely gets explained. Cholesterol cannot move through your blood on its own. Blood is water-based. Cholesterol is fat-based. They don't mix. So, your body packages cholesterol into transport particles. Think of them as vehicles moving through your bloodstream carrying cargo. These vehicles are called lipoproteins. Some of them deliver cholesterol to cells that need it. Some of them collect excess cholesterol and take it away. You've heard their names before. LDL, HDL. But here's where the oversimplification becomes dangerous. LDL is not automatically bad. HDL is not automatically good. What matters is not the label. It's the condition of the vehicle. Because LDL particles don't all behave the same. Some are large and buoyant. They float through your bloodstream, deliver their cargo, and move on. Others are small, dense, and sticky. They linger. They scrape against artery walls. They slip into damaged tissue and get trapped. That's where inflammation begins. That's where plaque slowly forms, quietly, invisibly. Two people can have the same cholesterol number on paper. One is at serious risk. The other is not. Standard blood tests often can't tell the difference. And that's why so many people are confused. They eat better. They try to exercise. Their numbers don't change much. Or worse, their numbers look fine. And yet, something still goes wrong because the real issue was never just how much cholesterol was present. It was how those particles were behaving. Now, here's the part that most people never consider. Your body doesn't randomly mismanage cholesterol. When cholesterol rises, it's often responding to something. Inflammation, stress, long hours of sitting, constant insulin spikes. A body that feels like it needs to stay in defense mode. Cholesterol increases because your body is trying to repair, protect, and stabilize. The system isn't broken. It's overloaded. So the real question isn't, how do I fight cholesterol? The real question is, what signal tells my body it's safe to stop overprotecting itself? And this is where walking enters the story. Not as exercise, not as calorie burn, but as a signal that changes how cholesterol particles behave while they're still in your blood. Not later, not eventually, during the walk itself. Part 2. Why normal cholesterol still breaks hearts. Here's a statistic that makes most people uncomfortable. Nearly half of heart attacks happen in people whose cholesterol levels are considered normal. Not extreme, not alarming, not high enough to trigger panic. Normal. So how does that happen? It happens because cholesterol numbers are a snapshot, but heart disease is a movie. And most tests only show you how much cholesterol is in the blood, not how it's behaving, not how long it stays there, not how aggressively it interacts with your artery walls. Your arteries are not smooth glass pipes. They are living tissue. They respond to stress, to inflammation, to blood sugar spikes, to long hours of stillness. When those conditions repeat day after day, tiny injuries form along the artery walls. Microscopic, invisible, but biologically meaningful. Now, imagine cholesterol particles passing through that environment. Large, healthy particles tend to glide by. They don't stick. They don't linger. But small, dense particles behave differently. They move more slowly. They penetrate damaged areas more easily. They get trapped. And once trapped, the immune system reacts. Inflammation begins. Plaque forms. The artery slowly stiffens and narrows. This process doesn't announce itself. There's no pain, no warning light, and it can happen even when your cholesterol number looks acceptable. This is why chasing numbers alone often fails, because your body doesn't manage cholesterol based on lab targets. It manages cholesterol based on signals. Signals that tell it whether the environment is safe or threatening. When you sit for long periods, insulin stays elevated. When insulin stays elevated, your body shifts into storage mode. Fat stays in circulation longer. Cholesterol transport becomes less efficient. Add chronic stress, and cortisol enters the picture. Cortisol pushes more energy into the bloodstream. Just in case. That includes fats and cholesterol. From your body's perspective, this makes sense. It thinks you're under constant pressure, so it prepares resources. It reinforces defenses. It holds on. The problem isn't that cholesterol is rising. The problem is that the signal never changes. And this is where most advice goes wrong. People are told to lower cholesterol without ever addressing why the body is holding on to it in the first place. That's like blaming smoke without asking why the fire is still burning. What your body actually needs is a signal that says energy is being used, movement is happening, threat level is low. And remarkably, one of the clearest signals your body recognizes is simple, rhythmic movement. Walking, not intense, not stressful, not demanding, just consistent. Walking tells your body something very specific. We are moving. We are using fuel. We are not in danger. And when that signal arrives, cholesterol behavior begins to change. Not because you forced it to, but because the environment inside your body shifted. Part 3. The first minutes when your body wakes up. The moment you take your first steps, something subtle but important happens. Your body shifts its attention. Not dramatically, not urgently, but deliberately. Your muscles contract rhythmically, one after another. To do that, they need fuel. At first, they pull from what's easiest glucose already circulating in your blood. But that supply is limited, and your muscles know it. So they start asking for more. Your heart rate rises just enough to keep up. Blood moves faster through your vessels. oxygen delivery improves. And inside that moving blood, cholesterol particles are no longer just drifting. They're passing checkpoints. Along the walls of your blood vessels sits an enzyme most people have never heard of, but almost everyone benefits from. Lipoprotein lipase. Think of it as a customs officer for fat. Its job is simple but powerful. When a cholesterol-carrying particle passes by, lipoprotein lipase can pull fat out of it and send that fat directly into muscle cells to be burned. When you're sitting for long periods, this enzyme is quiet, partly inactive, almost bored. But when you walk, it wakes up. Within minutes, as blood flow increases, lipoprotein lipase becomes more active, especially near working muscles. Fat begins to be removed from passing lipoprotein particles, not stored, used. Some LDL particles shrink as their cargo is stripped away. Some are broken down entirely. Others simply pass through lighter than before. This is a critical distinction. These particles are no longer hanging around, waiting to cause trouble. They are being processed. This is not a long-term adaptation. It's a real-time response. While this is happening, something else is quietly improving. Your HDL, the particles responsible for cleanup, begin to move more efficiently through the bloodstream. Their job is to collect excess cholesterol from tissues and artery walls and return it to the liver. Walking improves circulation. Better circulation means better access. HDL particles can reach places they couldn't reach as effectively when blood flow was sluggish. So even in these early minutes, two systems are already working together. Delivery particles are being lightened. Cleanup particles are moving faster. No supplements, no strain, no extreme effort, just movement. This is why the idea that walking is too gentle misses the point. Your body doesn't respond to walking because it's intense. It responds because it's purposeful. Movement signals demand. Demand triggers coordination. And coordination changes behavior. But this is only the surface layer. Because as you keep walking, something deeper begins to shift. Something that affects not just cholesterol particles, but the hormonal environment controlling them. Part 4. When the river starts moving again. By the time you've been walking for a little while, the change is no longer isolated. It becomes systemic. Blood is no longer creeping through your vessels. It's flowing. And flow matters more than most people realize. When blood moves slowly after hours of sitting, scrolling, working cholesterol particles spend more time brushing against artery walls. They linger. They interact. They have opportunities to stick. But as you continue walking, circulation speeds up just enough to change the rules. Cholesterol particles don't get the luxury of hanging around. They move. This is where an important shift happens in how your body handles risk. LDL particles that were previously drifting aimlessly are now caught in motion. They pass through enzyme-rich zones near active muscles. More fat is pulled out. More particles are altered, downsized, processed. They're no longer passive passengers. They're part of an active supply chain. At the same time, HDL particles gain momentum. Better blood flow gives them better reach. They can access cholesterol that's been sitting in tissues and along vessel walls, especially in areas that were previously underserved. When circulation was sluggish, think of it like this. When you sit all day, your bloodstream behaves like a slow, shallow river. Debris settles. Edges erode. Nothing clears itself efficiently. Walking deepens the channel. The current strengthens just enough to carry material downstream instead of letting it accumulate. And your body notices this. It interprets the movement as a signal that energy is being used, not stored. That circulation is needed, not optional. That systems must coordinate, not idle. This coordination reduces friction inside your arteries. Less friction means fewer opportunities for cholesterol particles to embed themselves in vulnerable spots. Fewer triggers for immune response. Less inflammation starting in silence. And here's the part that often gets missed. This isn't about forcing cholesterol down. It's about reducing the conditions that make cholesterol dangerous in the first place. Walking doesn't fight cholesterol. It changes the environment cholesterol moves through, but the most powerful shift hasn't happened yet. Because as your muscles continue pulling energy from the bloodstream, blood sugar begins to fall slightly. Nothing dramatic, nothing you'd feel, but your body feels it. And when blood sugar drops, insulin responds. Part 5. The insulin shift, when storage mode turns off. Somewhere into the walk, something subtle but decisive happens. Your blood sugar begins to dip. Not enough to make you feel weak, not enough to trigger hunger, just enough to send a message. And your body listens. Insulin, the hormone responsible for storage, starts to ease off. This matters more than most people realize, because insulin doesn't just manage blood sugar. It manages permission. High insulin tells your body to store energy, to hold on, to protect reserves. It tells the liver to package fat. It slows down fat usage, and it quietly interferes with the very enzymes that help clear cholesterol from circulation. When insulin stays elevated for long stretches after large meals, frequent snacking, long hours of sitting, your body remains locked in storage mode. Cholesterol particles stay loaded. Triglycerides stay high. Fat lingers in the bloodstream longer than it should. Walking interrupts this pattern. As muscles continue to pull glucose directly from the blood, insulin is no longer needed in the same way. Levels fall gently, and when insulin drops, doors open. Lipoprotein lipase, the enzyme that pulls fat out of cholesterol particles, becomes more active. Fat burning accelerates. Particles are cleared more efficiently. At the same time, other hormones quietly step forward. Adrenaline nudges the system toward energy use. Glucagon tells the liver to release stored fuel. This combination sends a powerful message. We're moving. We need energy now. So, instead of packaging more fat and cholesterol for storage, the liver shifts towards supply. Triglycerides are broken down. Fat is released to be burned. Circulating lipids are used instead of hoarded. This is why walking after a meal is uniquely effective. After eating, your bloodstream is flooded with glucose and fat. Insulin rises to manage it. If you sit, that energy has nowhere to go. So it stays. It circulates. It gets stored. But if you walk during this window, you intercept the surge. Glucose is pulled into muscle. Fat is burned. Insulin doesn't spike as high or stay elevated as long. The entire cholesterol environment becomes calmer. Less congestion, less pressure, less reason for particles to linger where they don't belong. This is not discipline. It's timing. You're not forcing your body to behave. You're meeting it at the moment it's most responsive. And the longer you continue walking, the deeper this shift becomes. Because beyond this point, the body doesn't just change how it handles fuel. It begins to change how it handles cleanup. Part 6. The HDL upgrade. When cleanup gets smarter. As the walk continues, your body stops improvising. It starts planning. Up to this point, cholesterol particles have been burned, lightened, redirected. Fuel has been used. Storage has been dialed down. Now the system turns to maintenance. Inside your bloodstream, HDL particles, the ones responsible for cleanup, begin to change their behavior. HDL is often described as good cholesterol, but that label hides the real story. HDL isn't good because it exists. It's good because of what it does. Its job is to find excess cholesterol that doesn't belong where it is. In tissues, along artery walls, trapped in places where it can cause damage, and carry it back to the liver for recycling or disposal. Walking improves this process in two ways. First, movement stimulates the liver to begin assembling new HDL particles. Not instantly, but the signal is sent during the walk. The body reads sustained movement as a reason to invest in cleanup capacity. Second, and more important, walking improves the quality of HDL. As circulation improves and insulin remains lower, HDL particles become more efficient at binding cholesterol and transporting it. This process is known as reverse cholesterol transport, but you don't need the term to understand the effect. It means cleanup gets faster, more targeted, less wasteful. Instead of cholesterol lingering in vulnerable areas, it's mobilized, picked up, moved out. Think of it like this. It's not just that you're adding more cleanup crews to the system. You're upgrading their tools and routes. They reach places they couldn't reach before. They move through traffic more smoothly. They clear problems before they grow. This matters because plaque formation is not a single event. It's a slow accumulation. HDL doesn't erase plaque overnight, but it changes the balance. More removal, less buildup. And this shift begins during the walk itself. The benefits you see on a blood test weeks later are simply the paperwork catching up. But there's another layer to this story, because as walking continues past the half-hour mark, the body begins drawing energy from a very different source, a source that quietly drives inflammation and cholesterol dysfunction from behind the scenes. Part 7. The deep shift. When visceral fat loses its grip. Somewhere beyond the familiar rhythm of the walk, the body crosses a quiet threshold. The easy fuel is mostly gone. Glucose has been used. Circulating fat is being handled efficiently. So the body looks deeper. It turns its attention to visceral fat. This is not the fat you see in the mirror. It's the fat wrapped around your organs, hidden, metabolically active, and far more influential than most people realize. Visceral fat doesn't just sit there. It releases inflammatory signals. It interferes with hormone balance. It quietly pushes the liver toward producing more problematic cholesterol particles. This is why visceral fat is so tightly linked to heart disease, even in people who don't appear overweight. When walking continues long enough, the body begins pulling energy from this deeper reserve. Not aggressively, not all at once, but consistently. As visceral fat is broken down, those inflammatory signals begin to soften. The background noise inside the body lowers, and cholesterol metabolism responds. With less inflammation, artery walls become less reactive. With less stress signaling, cholesterol particles are less likely to behave defensively. They don't cling as tightly. They don't linger as long. At the same time, the liver adjusts its internal balance. It no longer receives the same emergency signals. It doesn't need to overproduce LDL for repair or defense. Distribution becomes more precise. This is where walking earns a reputation it rarely gets credit for. It's not just burning fat. It's calming the system that made fat and dangerous cholesterol behavior necessary in the first place. And this is why the changes last. Because once inflammation drops and signaling stabilizes, the body doesn't rush back into old patterns the moment you stop walking. It remembers. Hours later, while you're resting, later that night, while you're asleep, the liver continues adjusting how cholesterol is packaged and released. This is the remodeling phase. Nothing dramatic, nothing visible, but profoundly important. The body is learning a new baseline, and when walking becomes regular, this baseline sticks. Part 8. Why consistency wins when intensity fails. Here's where many people get misled. They assume the body responds best to effort, more sweat, more strain, more intensity, but cholesterol doesn't respond to effort the way muscles do. It responds to signals. And the most powerful signal your body recognizes is not intensity, it's repetition. When walking becomes regular most days, even at an unremarkable pace, the body stops treating movement as an event. It starts treating it as an expectation. And expectations change systems. Your liver, in particular, begins to adapt. It notices that energy is being used frequently. That fuel is leaving the bloodstream consistently. That storage is no longer the safest strategy, so it adjusts how cholesterol is produced and packaged. Not dramatically, not overnight, but precisely. LDL particles tend to become larger and less aggressive. Triglycerides are released and cleared more efficiently. HDL activity remains elevated, not because you forced it, but because the environment supports it. This is why walking works so well, even though it looks unimpressive. It doesn't trigger a stress response. It doesn't flood the body with cortisol. It doesn't demand recovery days that interrupt the signal. You can do it tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. Each walk reinforces the same message. Energy is flowing. Threat is low. Defense mode is unnecessary. Contrast that with sporadic, high-intensity effort. One hard session followed by long periods of sitting sends mixed signals. Use energy, then store aggressively. Burn, then brace. the body never settles. Walking allows the system to stabilize, and stability is what cholesterol responds to. This is also why pace matters less than distance and frequency. You don't need to walk fast. You don't need to feel exhausted. You need to move often enough that your body trusts the pattern. Once that trust forms, the benefits accumulate quietly. Blood tests change. Inflammation markers improve. Risk drops. But long before any number shifts, the internal environment has already been transformed. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. Because cholesterol was never the enemy. It was a messenger. Part 9. The signal your body has been waiting for. At this point, the picture becomes clear. Cholesterol was never acting on its own. It was responding. Responding to long hours of stillness. Responding to constant storage signals. Responding to a body that felt it needed to stay prepared, just in case. Modern life keeps that signal stuck on. Sit, eat, rush, stress, repeat. From your body's point of view, that pattern looks like uncertainty, and uncertainty triggers defense. More cholesterol in circulation, more fat held in reserve, more repair materials standing by. Not because your body is failing, but because it's trying to protect you. Walking interrupts that narrative. Not with force, with reassurance. Each walk quietly tells your system something different. Energy is being used. Movement is normal. The environment is stable. And your body believes repetition more than promises. That's why walking works even when motivation fades. That's why it works even when it feels too simple to matter. It's not an intervention. It's a conversation. Every step says, you can relax a little. You don't need to brace. Over time, cholesterol stops behaving like a defensive resource. It becomes what it was always meant to be, a tool, not a threat. This is also why walking doesn't demand perfection. You don't need the right shoes. You don't need an hour. You don't need intensity. You need consistency. 10 minutes after a meal, 20 minutes in the evening, 30 minutes most days. Enough to keep the signal alive. And when that signal stays steady, healing becomes possible not because you chased it, but because you stopped interfering with it. So if you came into this thinking walking was just about burning calories or being healthy, now you know better. Walking reshapes the environment inside your body. It changes how cholesterol behaves. It lowers risk not by fighting biology, but by aligning with it. Your body was never your enemy. It was waiting for clarity. And sometimes, clarity begins with something as ordinary as putting one foot in front of the other and letting your biology remember what balance feels like.